Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today we're looking at the 2011 series, Marvel Zombies Supreme. It's like a burrito supreme, or a chicken supreme, or a cutlass supreme. Way back in Avengers number 69, nice, we were introduced to the Squadron Sinister. Really, we actually got to meet and learn about them in issue 70, but that was still technically their second appearance. I wasn't just making a 69 joke for no reason. Anyway, the squadron at the time consisted of Dr. Spectrum, who used a special power prism to make constructs out of light, Hyperion, an atomic-powered man of super strength who was also able to fly and nearly invulnerable, Nighthawk, a normal human capable of great athletic ability who used gadgets and clever plans to achieve his goals, and finally, the Wizard. Yep, they really named him that. But don't be fooled by his yellow outfit. His power is actually super speed. And yes, in case you were wondering, these four were indeed intentional references to some of the biggest heroes of the Justice League. Going in order, that's Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, and The Flash, of course. Feels very typical of Roy Thomas, at least to me, to not include a Wonder Woman proxy, despite her being one of DC's biggest stars. But we would get one eventually. Because the Squadron Sinister would prove so popular that they would return, this time as the Squadron Supreme, a group of heroes from a world the Avengers would take to calling Other Earth. Their roster would be expanded to include more familiar Justice League types, and they would go on to appear more and more throughout the years, with their roster of heroes always growing. They even received their own self-titled series at one point, one of the first series from a major comic book company to be set entirely on a different Earth from that company's main universe. So suffice it to say, the squad is a pretty big deal. And especially with them having made a recent comeback thanks to J. Michael Straczynski in a popular Marvel Max series, right alongside the growing popularity of the Marvel Zombies series that I've already covered on this channel, make sure to check those videos out, it was probably only inevitable that the squadron would make some kind of appearance in Marvel Zombies. After all, there had already been a lot of effort by this point to draw in just about every aspect of the Marvel Universe into the zombie stories. We had Earth-based heroes, space beings, living planets, robots, other supernatural creatures, and even Howard the Duck. So why not one of the biggest names in alternate universe stories for Marvel? To answer that question, Marvel brought in writer Frank Marafino and artist Fernando Blanco, neither of whom had worked on Marvel Zombies nor Squadron Supreme before, giving us a chance for a fresh take at both. So let's see just how supreme these zombies can get, and take this away. The comic opens on a heliwopter, flying over some swampy-looking terrain. I'm pretty sure this means Fortunate Son is supposed to be playing right now, or Sympathy for the Devil. Inside the choppa, we find our main characters, who will have little pop-up name tags to let us know who they are. They're soldiers from a specialized military unit for dealing with superpowered threats called Guardsman Alpha Team, because I assume all the good names were taken already. The leader is Captain Jill Harper, and the demolition expert Haas is saying inappropriate things to her. That's sexual harassment, and she doesn't have to take it. Probably nobody remembers those commercials but me. Also, Haas isn't much of a nickname. I honestly thought they were using it for everyone the first time I read this comic and didn't realize that it was one specific character. The communications expert is called Soapbox, and the medic is of course called Doc. Their Gatling gun wielding heavy support is called 2-Ton, and lastly there's a tech expert in the group named Mainframe. Gee, I wonder why he's called that. The group has been sent to the Pegasus Research Station, a secret military research group looking for alternative energy sources that stretched really hard to get their name to be an acronym. They weren't sent alone either, but were given a single superhero backup in the form of Battlestar, a former sidekick of Captain America who graduated into being his own hero. The team doesn't fully know what they're doing here. Thankfully, they'll go over the full mission briefing that they should have already received before coming here so we can know what they know. Apparently, about 4 hours earlier, someone inside Pegasus hit an emergency shutdown that completely sealed off the base. We also see that inside the building, it actually goes down deep underground. This is because one of the various energy sources the base had been trying to research was molten magma. So I'm sure there will be no evil scientist here. there's never evil scientists around molten magma, things immediately go wrong once they're inside the base and they're attacked within moments by a zombified Tom Thumb, though they don't seem to recognize him and immediately manage to kill him. Tom Thumb is, I guess, supposed to be a sort of equivalent to the Atom in that he's small in size and a super genius, but I don't really see it. I'm sure he's got a great bakery section, though. Moving on from Thumb, Alpha Team finds the safe room with all the scientist survivors, but breaking the seal seems to have been a bad idea, because now Nighthawk is in the room, and within moments he's Batmaned his way around the room, killing all the scientists with quick bites to the neck. Before Alpha Team can stop him, the rest of the Squadron Supreme shows up, all zombified already. As with the ones I introduced in the opening, the rest of these are pastiches of the Justice League as well. We have Blue Eagle, who is basically Hawkman, and was actually American Eagle in his first appearance, but became Blue Eagle in the first self-titled series. Then there's Power Princess, the Wonder Woman equivalent I mentioned, whose first appearance was actually in The Defenders. Amphibian is the Aquaman of the group, and Golden Archer and Lady Lark are of course Green Arrow and Black Canary, even though, somewhat hilariously, in his first appearance, Golden Archer actually went by Hawkeye. Finally, creeping as creepily as he can creep in the back there, is the Shape. I believe the newest, in terms of creation, member of the squad. He's basically Plastic Man. Doc from Alpha Team, to get back to the story here, despite having seen what Nighthawk literally just did, is like, oh, you guys look sick, maybe I can help. Hyperion accepts Doc's outstretched hand with his teeth, and using only that, rips off Doc's arm, finally allowing the medic to realize that they're zombies! Yeah, you think, genius? Hyperion is stopped from getting Harper next by Battlestar's shield, with Battlestar making a smug comment about getting in Harper's way, a reference to an earlier conversation between them where Harper had asked him to keep out of their way. This is no time to be smug, man! The two teams then fight, and while most of Alpha Team is able to more or less hold their own against the squad, 2 Ton's Gatling gun has basically no effect on Hyperion. So Hype rips off 2 Ton's arms, he's a big fan of ripping off arms, bites off the soldier's head, tosses the body to the other zombies, and then proceeds to go Shakespearean as he eats 2 Ton's head. Alas, poor Yorick, I chew him well. Yeah, he actually said that. That's a pretty good bit, honestly. Seemingly, the last living scientist reveals that he has some Argonite, Hyperion's only weakness. His "this totally isn't kryptonite" weakness. Alpha Team basically wastes this seemingly super important advantage by just tossing it at the Squadron Supreme to distract them while Alpha Team makes their escape, sealing off the room behind themselves. That same scientist then explains what's actually going on here. It all started around the time of Heroes Reborn, an event from the late 90s, when the Squadron was trapped on the main Marvel Universe Earth 616, and living at Project Pegasus until they could find a way to return to their Earth. At that time, there was a scientist at the project whose name is spelled like Dawai, but I'm pretty sure it's just pronounced Die. Dr. Die. 'Cause zombies. You get it. With help from Dr. Spectrum's constructs, Dr. Die is able to learn the DNA sequences of the squad members, then mix those sequences together with some dead bodies and some negatively charged Zeta rays gathered from outer space to bring those cadavers to life. Only it wasn't quite life, and it wasn't quite death. He had created superpowered zombies. The best kind of zombie. Or worst kind? You get the idea. We also learned that there was an additional squad member raised from the dead, the one named Nuke, who I believe is basically supposed to be Captain Atom. But Nuke disappeared down a radioactive waste disposal chute and hasn't been seen since. And Nuke's not the only one to escape, because the not-so-trapped squadron finds their way down to the magma pits that I'd mentioned earlier, with a specific plan in mind. It seems the squad doesn't fully realize they're not the actual versions of themselves, and so desire to get home. But to do that, they'll need a food supply, and the only one able to get out of the base currently is Hyperion, since in his 9-vulnerable body, he could survive flying through the magma. So Hyperion dives into the lava and comes bursting bursting out like a comet, crashing somewhere in Kansas, where we can very fittingly get a macabre twist on Superman's origin story, with Ma and Pa getting eaten instead of finding a child to raise. Hyperion then finds a stadium to eat all the football players from, including the star athlete who is totally not Clark Kent. Don't be absurd. Hyperion also stops a Roxxon shipment of cows that he says smells funny, but proceeds to devour his way through them anyway. At this point, he's finally stopped by Kansas's super team from the 50 States Initiative, the Harvesters. I love them. They are so hilarious. This one is my favorite. I'ma call him LC. Unfortunately, Hyperion just kills his way through them immediately, including burning L-Seed with his heat vision. Aw, bye little sunflower. You will be missed. The only one who has any success against him is Pioneer, conqueror of prairie and plains, who proceeds to raise an undead cattle stampede to run Hyperion down with? Holy shit, she could do that? I take it back, she's my new favorite. When Hype finishes killing his way through her companions, he turns his attentions to her, but before he can do anything, he simply collapses. Apparently, the funny smell that had come from those cows was mad cow disease. Pioneer realizes that Hyperion had subconsciously realized that infecting himself with the disease would knock him out, and so had eaten the cows as a sort of means of trying to be a little fraction of the hero that he had once been. Well, a Hyperion had been anyway. From there, we move to a small town in West Vermont to find out what happened to Nuke. He had apparently surfaced inside a nuclear reactor, breaking the containment on the reactor and radiating the whole town. But the radiation isn't what the town has to worry about, as Nuke begins eating his way through the population, until we have a full-on Night of the Living Dead situation going on. The town's mayor and his wife, an EMT, are working together to try and contain the problem, but it quickly becomes clear that the town is a lost cause, and the mayor calls in a nuclear strike to wipe the town off the map. So they lead Nuke and the Living Dead on a chase to get them all gathered in one location and embrace as the strike destroys them all. Not sure that would actually kill Nuke since he was able to live through like a nuclear reactor and stuff, but I'm sure it's fine. Back at the base, meanwhile, Alpha Team has found Dr. Dye's lab, where they learned that while he was collecting the Zeta Rays to raise his zombies, he also collected another mysterious energy form from outer space. Before we learn anything about that, the team is attacked again by the zombie squad, with Wizard showing up to grab Soapbox and simply run off with him. Eagle also shows up, but Battlestar simply chops him in half. With the zombies closing in on them, Harper decides that someone needs to survive the attack to potentially warn the outside world of what is happening, so she sends Battlestar to climb up an elevator shaft while she seals herself and Haas, the only remaining member of her team, into Dr. Dye's lab. Inside the lab, the mysterious energy source suddenly surges, and out of it comes Jack of Hearts! Oh, weird, but good. They could really use some superhero backup Oh, he fainted. Yeah. He's still useless. While Jack is unconscious on the floor, the zombies manage to break into the room and attack again, with Golden Archer having the rather brilliant idea to attach his teeth to the end of one of his arrows and fire that at Haas, managing to infect him from afar. That is such a disturbingly good idea. Damn, GA, you put all the other archers to shame. But Haas is the king of insubordination, so even as a zombie, he refuses to behave. He turns and blows out the archer's brains, while Harper escapes with the still useless Jack. Lark, in a rage that her lover, the Golden Archer, was killed, uses her mighty scream to literally rip Haas's head off from his shoulders and send it flying after Harper. So Harper allows Haas to live, or to unlive? To live up to his role as demolition expert, attaching some explosives to his head and allowing him to set it off with his teeth after she's escaped to collapse a tunnel and keep the zombies from following her. Here we get a flashback explaining who Jack of Hearts is, for the large majority of the audience that probably doesn't know since he'd been dead for like 10 years or so by this point. His father, who was obsessed with cards, developed a new type of energy with Jack's mom. This got assassins from a corporation to come after him for not sharing this energy with their corporate masters in order to make a profit. And in attempting to escape the assassins, Jack got exposed to the energy and became a being of energy himself. Using this new power, he became a superhero, traveling the universe and even joining the Avengers. But his power eventually became unstable, and he sacrificed himself, flying up to explode in space, far away from anyone. But since this story is calling him a being made of pure energy, it'll turn out that he didn't die so much as his energy was simply dispersed, and then accidentally gathered together again by Dr. Die, so that we could have a very different kind of character raised from the dead. Which, yay, Jack of Hearts is back. I'm so excited. Once Jack has rehashed his backstory for us, he wakes up, just in time to see the Shape show us just how snake-like he can be as he swallows Harper whole. Jack follows Shape through the air vents and discovers that not only had he been using the vents to travel, he's been using a nexus of the vents to keep his giant, swollen, deformed body that is overstuffed with all the scientists he's eaten. That's messed up. And I love it. Harper is still alive inside of Shape, so using his energy blast, Jack tears the Shape apart, freeing her and the disgusting remains of Shape's other victims. With that, they head back to the surface level to escape the facility, where they reconnect with Soapbox and Battlestar. After being whisked away earlier, Soapbox was able to free himself from Whizzer by creating positive ions to attack the negative ions animating the zombie. Very sciencey, very demure. I am so sorry for making that reference. Soapbox then arms himself with a particle beam, and honestly I have no idea where he got it from. But he uses it to pretty remarkable effect on Amphibian, removing all of the zombie's limbs until he can do naught but make Monty Python references. At this point, Battlestar, having reached the top of the elevator shaft, joins up with Soapbox, but they then come face to face with Dr. Die, who has turned himself into a zombie-like creature based on his experiments with the Squadron, and seems to have control of the zombified staff. Battlestar and Soapbox make a stand at the door to the base to keep the zombies from getting out, joined by Mainframe, who had been waiting outside this whole time. In the fight, Soapbox stumbles and ends up cutting off his own legs with his particle beam. Bet you feel bad about making fun of Amphibian now, huh, Soap? The rest of the Clone Squadron arrive, and Power Princess reveals that Mainframe is so effective because he's an android, not a man. Maybe the name was a bit of a hint? Maybe? Nah. It's at this point that Harper and Jack at last arrive so we can get a final standoff. The heroes realize that it was Jack's energy that made the zombies stable, so to stop them, Jack is able to pull all of his energy out of them, which weakens them enough for him to blast them into dust. In the aftermath, they discover that Harper was bitten, and she quickly zombifies. But Jack's not having it, and he pulls his energy out of her like he did the other zombies, only this time for some reason that restores her to life. The two then share a kiss, because I guess they like each other? Not really feeling it. She definitely was having better chemistry with Battlestar. I think our writer, Frank Marafino, may be the one really into Jack. Or maybe he just really wanted to make a Jack and Jill joke. Whatever floats your boat, I guess. While they think they've saved the day, what the team doesn't know is that Dr. Die managed to escape the facility before Jack withdrew his energy from all the zombies. And now he's out in the world, feasting on some hapless campers. The comic ends on a question mark, but as far as I know, this is the last we ever see of Dr. Die, and that just leaves us biting into the breakdown. There certainly is a lot of Marvel zombie content. Seriously, I'm still not even that close to being done covering all of them. I'm like maybe over halfway, and that's only currently because there continues to be more coming out all the time. And honestly, I'm not sure much past the first story was really necessary or gave us a lot, even though I have actually enjoyed a number of the comics. I'm surprised this is something Marvel feels the need to do regularly. But all that said, this comic is pretty fun. The creative team definitely took the assignment seriously. While it maybe doesn't do the most amazing job ever of mixing the lore of Marvel Zombies with Squadron Supreme, it still provides a fun twist in the series. While I barely talked about it, I really like that this series spent an entire issue from the perspective of just some regular human dude as he investigated a zombie outbreak in his hometown, giving us a more suspense-focused horror film type story for really the first time in the Marvel Zombie series. It was pretty cool to see, and it was a really cool issue. I don't feel it was necessary or helpful to add Jack to this story, but I'll be the first to admit that that's probably just me being biased. I really don't like that guy. Overall, I'm giving this series a recommendation level of medium. This is one of those times where I really have to point out that recommendation level is not my personal level of enjoyment for a series. I like this series actually quite a bit, and I think people who enjoy other Marvel Zombie stories would definitely get a kick out of this one. I'm just not sure it would provide much for many other people, even Squadron Supreme fans, as the Squad is very much in the background of this book. The collected edition gets 1 nuclear bomb. And that's a bad thing, obviously, because you can't hug your kids with nuclear arms. Or nuclear either, as we say down here in Texas. Look, it's easier to say, okay? Anyway, the collected edition comes with all 5 issues and just 1 bonus cover. And that's it. I'm really glad the creative team took this job seriously, because it definitely feels like Marvel is just doing this as a cash grab. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. It's the spooky month of October, so there will be more Marvel Zombies coming your way. Wish that included the Army of Darkness crossover, but it just doesn't look like I'm going to be able to make that happen, so sorry. Next up is the Marvel Zombie stories from Battle World. That should be fun, right? So if you're excited about that, or you did enjoy this video, or you're just hungry for more content, then make sure to like and subscribe and all those YouTube things so you can help the channel out, and so you can help yourself out to be sure to be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.